Schooling has resumed in all 11 schools in the KwaNyavu area in KwaZulu-Natal Midlands following consultations between the Office of the Premier and traditional leaders. Schools in the area did not open for the 2022 academic year due to safety concerns after teachers reportedly began receiving death threats. Schools were set to reopen on Wednesday last week. SABC News reporter Mlondi Radebe is at the Phangindawo full-service school in KwaNyavu for us. He's covering the story for us. Mlondi, over to you.
Thank you very much, Nompu. We've managed to locate the MEC of Education in KwaZulu-Natal, basically to brief us in relation to the school, because we understand that we did visit the area where the schools were closed last week, and there were chains and padlocked by the community members. We don't, basically the traditional leadership in the area said they don't know who padlocked those schools and who put those notes on the gate. But next to me is the MEC, who will briefly tell us about the issues around the opening of schools today. MEC, thank you very much for your time. Briefly about the meeting that was held by the government of KwaZulu-Natal as well as the KwaNyavu traditional leadership that led to the opening of the schools today. Can you briefly tell us about that?
Well, last week there was a meeting convened by the Premier with one group that is involved in this feud over chieftaincy. And that meeting culminated in a committee meeting yesterday, where committee members agreed that they will give space to government and the family, the Mlondi family, to resolve the issue of the chieftaincy, but the children must be allowed to go to school. That is why all our 11 schools are operating today. Yes, in some schools there are learners who did not pitch up because we think there are parents who are still uncomfortable to release them to school. But we can confirm that all 11 schools are operational, and we believe that as days go by, there will be full attendance by the learners in all the schools.
We also understand that the teachers were fearful after receiving those threats. What have they reported to the department so far?
Indeed, there were threats that were sent to the educators and the principals, because we'll remember that last week when we were opening schools, the notices in all the gates were saying, don't open these schools. If you do so, you will then face the consequences. And indeed, those principals that opened the schools then started to receive anonymous calls and to say, you will have then to bear the consequences because you have defied the instruction that we have given to you. It was quite tense, and given the history of that area, we did not take those threats lightly. That is why we decided not to open the school, so that we don't risk the lives of the educators and the principals. But the situation seems to be under control. The presence of the police there is giving comfort to committee members and the educators that indeed they are safe. But what we are saying to the law enforcement agencies is that given the history, it should not just be a touch and go situation where police are present today and tomorrow and then the rest of the days they are not seen, because we believe that there should be a serious security operation in that area so that the stability is restored and the parents as well as educators are actually comfortable to go about doing their work.
Not only these 11 schools in the province that did not open, but there were also other schools that did not open last week because of different reasons. Can you update us in relation to those?
There were 6 other schools that could not open last week in the area of Ladysmith, and the reason was that they couldn't be accessed because of the flooding that was taking place in that area. So we then advised educators as well as the learners to say, don't try to risk crossing the bridges that were underwater in order for them to go to schools. But today all of them again they are operating because the water levels have since subsided, and now the schools are operating.
MEC, the learners, they've lost 3 days of schooling. What can you say to the parents in trying to basically to cover the days?
It's really an unfortunate thing that have happened, and our message is clear to all committee members. There should be no kind of difficulty or problem that result in parents or committee members deciding to close schools. schools should be treated as sacred places because that's where we build families, that's where we build communities, that's where we build a successful nation. So if you disturb learners from going to school, we are killing the future of these learners. We are killing the future of the families. That's the message that we're even saying to those involved in the challenges around the chieftaincy, to say when this matter is resolved, the chief who will be presiding over this community must preside over a community that will be successful because learners of this community are educated, they are skilled, they have necessary expertise and knowledge. But if you close the schools, whoever will be presiding eventually will preside over a community that will that will be basically not succeeding because its learners will have not received proper education, they will have no skills, basically they will be unemployable. So that is the message that we are not only sending to the community of KwaNyavu, but to all the communities in KwaZulu-Natal, because there is a trend now that when people are angry for whatever reason, whether it's service delivery, they then disrupt schools. We are saying, as Department of Education, we need to work with all stakeholders, with all the parents to protect the schools, but also law enforcement agencies must therefore exert their authority, because some of the things basically are undermining the authority of the state. What actually happened in KwaNyavu was actually undermining the authority of the state, and the state can't allow to be undermined in that sense. So that is why we are saying we must continue with the engagement, but also the state must exert its authority.
Let me see if you know, why does it take so long for the Premier or the government to intervene in this issue? Because during the local government elections also, we did see voting stations closed in the same area.
Well, engagements have been ongoing, but you'll also know that this is a matter that is before the court now. And when a matter is before the court, even the government gets hamstrung in terms of interventions, because we'll have to be guided by what is the ruling of the court eventually. But there has been continuous engagement between the Premier's office and some groupings that are involved in the area of KwaNyavu.
Thank you very much for your time.
Siyabonga kakhulu.
There was the MEC of Education in KwaZulu-Natal addressing us in relation to the opening of schools in the KwaNyavu area. Back to you, Nombo, in studio.
My colleague there, Mlondi Radebe.